Okay, I've told myself that the only way I'm going to start doing this is just press play and go. Um, so yeah, my name is Sophistry Dude, otherwise Nick. I have been following a couple of different personnel cognitive function theory channels on YouTube for a while now, and I have been delving into this field for the past 2 years. I've come to the point where I feel like I can discuss and bring up my analysis of cognitive function theory with others, and with that, I've developed a rather large body of work. I have then taken that body of work and funneled it down into a slideshow that I'm going to be going over, where I'm going to kind of lay out the key differences between my system in Socionics, Socionics itself, as well as Myers-Briggs, which is what I'm going to be kind of focusing this video on. If you're not familiar with the topics or what exactly is being discussed here, I will delve into it a little bit. I also have another video on my channel that gives a very brief synopsis, and I would just recommend YouTubing or Googling something akin to what is MBTI or what is cognitive function theory. One issue with cognitive function theory in general right now, and probably the main reason why there's such a disconnect between different systems, and it's a pseudoscience effectively, is that the definitions are not great, / they're just all over the place, and the way that it's kind of viewed is very skewed. It has multiple purposes in that sense, and one of those purposes is to essentially sell businesses the idea that they could make people work together better when their system or the systems in general are almost impossible to apply right now on that type of scale. So with that, I'm going to be getting into the meat of this, the presentation. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Okay, so yeah, this starts off pretty heavy, and it's going to continue being this way. I have some fun little slides over here, as you can see. You'll get some kicks out of my titles and stuff like that. And yeah, so let's just start off with it. So as I say here, cognitive functions can either be built in a top-down system or a bottom-up system. Bottom-up system is a classification system. Top-down system is a taxonomy. Socionics is attempting to create a taxonomy that is accurate. Whether or not it's accurate, we don't know. We're trying to figure that out, and there are many tools that we can use to figure out where we're at. And one thing to note about this is that technically there are infinitely many ways of doing this. There are infinitely many ways of constructing your taxonomy. It's just the same with your classification system. So in that sense, we're also looking for what's not necessarily the simplest, but the most elegant of the taxonomies, or elegant of the systems that we can create. And I think some models of socionics have really gotten to that, and I'll go into that here a little bit. So anyways, yeah, we're trying to classify what you do, or how you interact with the world, how you think about the world, so on and so forth. Cognitive function theories is deciphering different types of thoughts rather than the progenies of thoughts. So, yeah, the progenation of a thought may be something happens in real life, right? Like, so something falls and hits you on the head. That sucks. The way you go about dealing, or let's use a better example. Something falls and hits something else and breaks something. That's unfortunate. The way you go about dealing with that is really kind of going to be shown in your function stack, both your unconscious and conscious function stack, and in Socionics, as well as it should be in every other system, your function stack is determined based off of ability and preference. And preference is a big one there because ultimately, and I'll get down to this later, what we're talking about is just different colorations of thinking, of cognating. So it's not, yeah. Anyways, number 2. Okay, so I'm trying to use this as an example of showing that just as a color spectrum, thought processes just kind of meld together. And so I have some overlapping here and some like separation here. This isn't necessarily accurate. This is completely arbitrary, but the idea is that someone that has an SI thought process, it could be verging on being an SE thought process because they're kind of inherently tackling similar things and so on with all of them. And even to the point where like an FI thought process and a TI thought process can and will look very, very similar depending on the health of both the types, and how other people that aren't dominant or aren't prominent in their usage of these two types would approach them. They're going to be very similar. So this is something that I think is very important to lay down, especially for for all people that follow this, but especially for socionics people. This notion that because this is something I've seen as a disparity that it's not really possible to classify someone's thought processes. It is, but it's also the way something is said and done, and the action behind it, and the emphasis behind it, and all that stuff. All that comprises the actual thing. So, for instance, if you're talking to someone and they say something that's like that just sounds like an FI statement, such as "you shouldn't do this because it's wrong, but it's okay if you do it if you're doing it for a reason." It's not okay to speed, but it's okay to speed if you're getting your wife to the hospital. That's inherently an FI statement. That type of statement can blend in with FE statements, like that one almost does. It can blend in with TI and so on and so forth, TE, whatever. You can see that it's just going to overlap with a lot of other things, and that's kind of the point of this. Okay. So to get down, I'm going to use a couple different words here. Let me go ahead and add it in a while. I'm going to use some words here that are used in other systems and are used in various ways. And this is not the only definitions I'm going to be approaching. In fact, there's a large portion of this is going to be dedicated to definitions. But the first definition, hierarchy, this is used in all fields of psychology as well as economics and anything else, really. It's everywhere. Hierarchies are naturally forming things in everything. All aspects of physical reality, as I put it here. And even if you're not actively trying to participate in a hierarchy, you are participating in a hierarchy. Whether or not you're adhering to the hierarchy or you're ignoring it, whether or not you're trying to climb it or you're just stagnant or whatever, it doesn't matter. Hierarchies are just a thing. It's just our ability to rank things from one order to another. So, in some sense, this is incredibly bad for someone like me because my ability to interact with a hierarchy is fairly poor. But regardless, hierarchies are in all aspects of physical reality. You could also theorize that they are in all aspects of metaphysical reality as well. So all reality. Whether or not that's true, I don't know yet. So I just put this. Anyways, ideation. This is a word that I'm going to use quite frequently, and this word is it's effectively obviously the progenation of this word is idea, or the process, and this process generating ideas. That's fairly common, but I don't think this word is used often at all. So I'm going to use it and define it here just for that reason alone. Archetypes. Categorization system is built up over experiencing similar behaviors and patterns. So we know the hero's journey archetype. That's the most classic thing, most classic archetype ever. There's all sorts of archetypes like that. Like the anti-hero has an archetype. The villain has an archetype. All sorts. Every character, every system or whatever, if it's established and has been repeated, there's an archetype. The nerds, the jocks, whatever, so on and so forth. These are all archetypes, and the application of archetypes is important, and it's necessarily what we're doing effectively, because we're putting people in boxes based off of archetypical reasoning. But I want to note that this archetypical thought is preferred by very specific types, and it's not preferred by some other types. So that's something to keep in mind, but archetypes will be used quite a bit in this video. So here, morals and ethics in philosophy in general, these are the same thing. Morals and ethics are the exact same, have the exact same meaning. And so there's an actual equivocation. And here, there's enough of a difference between the usage of the words, and there's a very clear place where we can identify the usage of these words, that I'm defining morals as the well-being of society. And I've defined society as this breakdown. Species overall, civilizations, cultures, so on and so forth, all the way down to the individual. So like, for the well-being of society, I could also mean the well-being of your best friend, your lover, your child, yourself, so on and so forth. Society is a placeholder here for how far up this scales. And the notion of my country versus another country, I'm going to side with my country and my society, my civilization, rather, whatever you want to say there. That's the reason why this is important to note on such a macro scale, is that we end up seeing this pattern play out over a lot of different systems. Ethics, the justice for society. I think this is a very apt way of describing FI. Morals is FE. The justice for society, the justice for something. That's the way I would really want to define introverted feeling in general. And I'll use the example I used earlier with the if you're rushing your wife to the hospital, and some cop pulls you over, you're not being served justice by them citing you for speeding when your wife or your partner's life is in danger because of this. I use wife as a generalization, whatever is an archetypal thing. Anyways, so like someone that is strong in actually a specific type of FI, but an FI would say that, pulling that person getting a ticket would not be justice. That person getting an escort from the cop to the hospital would be justice. And so that's what I mean here with the justice for society. And this also scales infinitely. It goes down to the individual all the way up to species or interspecies, whatever. It doesn't. I stopped at species because for all practical sense, that's where it stops. Okay. So yeah, these are some definitions that I want to set out that I'm going to be using throughout the videos rather. And I am very much looking for people to have a conversation with me about this. I think that I have come up with some very elegant definitions for the differences between FI and FE and FI here. But and so on and so forth. I think this is an appropriate thing to look into, especially for the notion of what I spoke about in my last video called infinite regression. And I'll speak about that at length here later on in this video series. Anyways, if you have any questions or if you have anything that you want me to discuss, please post up in the comment below. If you like this video, I really appreciate if you hit the like button and subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with content hopefully quite often, at least for a while. I have a lot of videos that I have like stored up, ready to go. I really should move my mic down to a more appropriate place. Anyways, I have a lot of videos stored up that I'm ready to make, and I finally have pushed myself to doing this. So yeah, here's the video. We've gone over the basic ideas that I have with it when it comes to cognitive functions. I think it should be a top-down approach. The notion that every type of action, every type of thing is not, it blends with its neighbors, it blends with the other types, and then we're trying to avoid some equivocation, of course we're trying to do that. And so we've set up some definitions here that we're going to be using throughout this series. There are going to be more definitions. That is one of the basics of creating a good logical argument, is to make sure that everyone is having the conversation using the same set of definitions. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with cognitive function theory in general, is that the definitions are either don't line up correctly, or they've picked up on some sort of other corollary, which I'll discuss on further. Okay, thank you so much.